my heart is always in the Midwest. Like I love it. It's like Midwest is best.
From the blog Random Sweets, I'm Staci Mergenthal, and this is Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, a show for people who embrace the warm and cozy spirit of everyday living in the northern Midwest, like today's guest, Jill Coene. Even though she's lived on the East Coast for nearly 30 years, my friend Jill is a Midwesterner at heart. She's in her 27th year of teaching in Rochester, New York, and when she retires, she plans to become a doula. Jill and I met in 1983 in 6th grade in Brookings, South Dakota. We must have become instant BFFs because I wrote on the entire back cover of her yearbook that year. We were in English class together, and we were quite the wisecracking duo for poor Mrs. Walsh. So it's kind of funny that Jill went on to get her degree in English literature and became a teacher, and I became a writer. Maybe disruptive students can sometimes turn out okay. Jill moved away in the middle of 7th grade, and I haven't seen her since. I asked Jill to join us for an episode because in addition to embracing the spirit of the Midwest, she loves to bake, hates washing dishes and cleaning up the kitchen, and isn't enthusiastic about making meals, just like me. She even spent a few years making and decorating wedding and special event cakes, not like me. Jill and her husband Scott and their daughter Vivian, who's 14, live in Rochester. Her 2 stepsons also live in the area. In this episode, Jill shares 3 family favorite recipes: a galette made with Thanksgiving leftovers, French toast casserole, and Snickurtle pie, which is a mashup of kind of like Snickers candy bars and a no-bake turtle cheesecake. And she discloses her 3 most iconic and favorite spots to eat when she comes back to Brookings. She also lets us in on a little secret about pasta salad on the East Coast. And just a note about this episode, we experienced connection issues while recording remotely, plus our call was dropped 3 times. I've pieced it together the best I can, but just know that there are spots where the signal cuts in and out and I couldn't fix it. But overall, the audio isn't horrible, and we had fun, and somehow I confessed to being in jail when I was a sophomore in high school. So let's talk Midwestern comfort food with my East Coast BFF. I am so happy. I've been thinking about this time that we get to record for quite a few days. I'm so excited. And you and I are both like in a different situation while we're recording. So we might hear trains go by or sirens go by because you're in your car and I'm in a condo in Alabama and some guys out mowing the lawn. And
I am in a park and there's a lot of geese.
We'll just do it and it'll be just fine. Well, I'm excited because you and I, this is a fun part of this story. You and I did not go to grade school together, but when we went to 6th grade in our town, then all of the elementary schools came together in one middle school. So you and I met in middle school in 6th grade, which would have been in early 80s. I can't remember. 83. Okay. And then we must have become like BFFs right away.
Apparently so, because my yearbook says.
Right.
My yearbook says we were. So
okay. Well then, so we were BFFs, and I thought that we were in middle school together through 8th grade, but now you just told me that you left like mid 7th grade. So we were friends for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And now it's 2023. We haven't seen each other since 7th grade.
In like what, 30, 40 years, almost 40 years, because it would have been 83 to 23 would be 40.
You can tell you're a teacher. Me, I'm just like, oh, that's a long time. I'm not adding up the years.
If we had been friends, I think that, like in real life, outside of Facebook, I probably would not be doing half the things that I do because I would want to be doing all the things that you do. I would want to be doing all the baking, all the pictures, all the traveling, all the donut shopping and coffee drinking, and I would probably just be hanging out with you and your husband.
We would just be hanging out. And Jason, half the time he's working, so he doesn't get to do the fun stuff with me all the time. But I think sometimes people think I have a more fun life. I mean, I'll sit at home for 3 or 4 weeks and not do any of those fun things. And then all of a sudden I'll be out for a few days and do a whole bunch at one time. It's like binge fun, right? Binge donating. I don't know what it's
Right.
called.
Binging.
And so I think just through social media, we connected back again quite a few years ago, and we still have so much in common. You love to bake. I love to bake. Now I just learned that you are more into the details. You used to make wedding cakes and you like piping bags and
I do. And all the special little tips and things. Yeah, I do. But I don't like all the cleanup. So people that I worked with used to love when I would bake cakes and stuff for people because a lot of times you would have to trim them. So I would bring in like all the scraps and like the leftover frosting and it would just be like a cake sundae almost.
So that brings me to you're not a baker for a living. You're a teacher
In Rochester.
In Rochester, in New York.
Yes. In New York.
You're not in the Midwest anymore. So let's talk about that. I don't know when you moved out to the East Coast, and I just know that you have ties.
I do. My whole family is in Esteline, Brookings, in South Dakota and Minnesota and Wyoming, like out there. So I ended up in New York because of 3M. My dad was transferred out here years ago, and I was at UMD in Duluth, and I just really wasn't ready to be alone, like have my family gone to New York and me still be. So I figured, well, I'll just come out here and I'll try it. If I don't like it, I can always go back to the Midwest. And then I was here and I met my first husband and got my job. And then I ended up in New York, like I said, for my dad's transfer, graduating college and getting married to my first husband. And so I always had my family in South Dakota in Brookings and Esteline. So I was there a couple times a year normally. And so my heart is always in the Midwest. Like I love it. It's like Midwest is best. That's what a lot of people that I work with are always saying, you know, if anytime something comes up about the Midwest, I'm like, well, yeah, because Midwest is best. And it really is. It really, you don't appreciate like the simple beauty of it until you're not there. Because when I lived there, I thought, oh my God, it's so boring, so flat. So where I live in Rochester, we live right on Lake Ontario. So it's pretty. It's not like New York City. But it's still a city, but it's not the concrete jungle like New York City. Sure. So we do have a lot of beautiful places here, but nothing as beautiful to me as South Dakota skies, South Dakota farmland. I don't know what it is. I absolutely love it. And I miss it so much.
So when you come back,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I always try to take pictures of it when I'm there, and it just they're never adequate to show how amazing it is. No. So I was so happy to show my husband. We drove, we've driven to South Dakota twice from New York, and that's an experience with the dog and a toddler. And, you know, when you're arguing with your husband, but I was very happy to show him how beautiful it was. And even he was like, wow, this is incredible. I see now what you're talking about with the sky and just how quiet it is and loving the small town life. Like the thing that he loved the most about Brookings was Walmart, because the Walmart was clean and quiet. To this day, we'll talk about, oh my God, you got to see the Walmart in South Dakota.
Oh, jeez. Well, he needs to go there sometime on an SDSU move-in weekend.
Oh,
He'll
yeah,
think
no.
Differently. Much different. Yeah. We all try to avoid it at that time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when you come back to the area, like to Brookings, what are some of your favorite places to go eat at that you're like, I have to go here when I'm back?
Well, I always have to have Nick's hamburgers, of course. And I got to take my family there, and even being little, I remember Nick so vividly with the stools and the lady that worked there. I don't know her name, and I'm sorry, God, for saying this, but she was cross-eyed and she had the glasses. Oh my gosh, I don't know her name, but I just vividly remember setting those burgers down in those little white napkins and like classic memories. I even have a
Yeah.
Nick's Christmas tree ornament.
Oh
So yeah,
man,
so Nick's, Pizza King,
oh yeah, that's a must.
that's and Taco John's. Like
Oh yeah.
I love we have Taco Bell, but
Mhm.
it's not the same. Not the same at all. And you
No.
know what we don't have here? Well, you know we don't have Bing bars because you mailed me the Bing bars,
Right, the Twin
which
Bays,
I
those are made in Sioux City, Iowa.
and they're yeah, and I froze them. And thankfully my husband didn't really like them, so they were all mine.
Good.
And so I ate every single one of them and enjoyed it so much.
Good.
But they don't have okay, so I don't even know if they still make them in South Dakota. Bismarck donuts. Do they
Oh,
still make
sure.
Bismarcks?
Yeah, if you go to bakeries, like the regular old-fashioned type bakeries, well, even if you go to the Hy-Vee grocery store to the donut section, they make Bismarcks.
Oh my God. We don't have those here.
Man, I would have thought that's something you just get anywhere.
No, I know.
Okay.
We don't have Bismarcks, we don't have Bing bars, and we don't have Lefse. Nobody makes Lefse. It's not like
Mm.
there's not a large population of Norwegian people. Believe it or not, I haven't had Lefse in like years.
Well, that doesn't
And my
surprise me about Lefse. A lot of people haven't heard of that unless you've grown up with it. I mean, there's plenty of people back
right.
in the Midwest that haven't heard of it or haven't tried it because unless you've kind of grown up with it in your family and had a grandmother or a great grandmother who made it.
So here's a weird story. My daughter has a friend that lives 2 houses away, and I have to pick the girls up from school. And so it was around Christmas about having to go to and she's 14, so everything is ugh.
Oh,
And
right.
she's like, and we eat this really weird food. What do you eat? She goes, it's called lepsa. I was like, what? You know what lepsa is? So it turns out her dad is from Wisconsin and they have family makes lepsa. And I was like,
Mm.
Kaylee, can you please bring me some lepsa? So anyway,
So what recipes are we talking about?
okay, so we're going to talk about leftover galette, but I was thinking you really could do it with any food that
Mm-hmm.
you had a lot of. And I'm still not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right. And Snickurtle pie. And the Snickurtle is super fast, and my stepsons love it. Like
Okay.
it is amazing. And I'll have to send you that recipe, but I can
Mm-hmm.
talk you through it. So the galette, the Thanksgiving galette, I giving time you were talking about leftovers, and I shared
Yeah.
what I do with the leftovers. It's so easy. It almost reminds me of like an open faced pot pie, really. And
Okay.
you take two dough crusts, like a pie dough, like Pillsbury or whatever. Or if you
Yeah.
want to be extra fancy, you could make your own, but I don't.
I do store bought. Yeah.
Right. So you put the two of them together because you need them to be a little bit thicker and
Oh.
roll it out like you're going to make a pizza. And that gravy on the bottom,
Oh
leftover
yeah.
turkey sprinkled on it, mashed potatoes, corn, anything that you had, you can make it delicious Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then I like berry sauce on top, so you're not getting the sweet and the savory at the same time, getting it separately if you pick through your food and eat it separately, like I do. The sweet for later. I like to save the sweet for when I eat the crust because I eat everything out first and then I eat the crust. Then after you put everything in, you have to leave like just a few inches around the edges and you just fold it over. And it almost looks like a crunch wrap, the Mexican crunch wrap,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just not folded all the way to the middle. And you just bake it until the crust is brown and the food is hot. And it's amazing and so easy.
That's really easy and easy to plan ahead. So when you're grocery shopping and doing your Thanksgiving dinners, or I mean, you could do this coming up here with Easter. You could do it with ham,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
right, and you're just at the store and buy yourself a couple of the crusts, so that then the next day you can make these leftovers. And then you just
But
bake
that's
it
a
in the
good
oven.
exactly. And you'll see and it browns up, the crust is done. You don't have to worry about anything on the inside being done because again, it's already all
Yeah.
or cooked.
Okay. And then this French toast bake. Now, this is something I think my son Sajan would really like. So I'm excited to hear about this one.
So the French toast casserole, I like to do this for Christmas morning because you need to let it soak overnight. And
Mm-hmm.
it's super easy. It's just a loaf of French bread. Put it in a 9 by 13 dish. And you just mix together 6 eggs, milk, half and half, vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg, and naturally a ton of butter. And
Mm-hmm.
pour over the bread, and then you let it soak over a drizzle that you make that's got more butter, and you can put nuts in it if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then you drizzle that over the top of it. And then the next morning, you just bake it.
So the drizzle, do you
Okay,
put the
so
drizzle on before you put it in the refrigerator, and then that's sitting in there overnight, and then you bake it, and the
right.
drizzle's already on
And
there.
then,
Okay.
yep. And then the next day, you bake it for about 40 minutes. I don't know how to describe it
Mhm.
besides it's just a mound of French toast. Like, it's so good. I always think it'd be really delicious to put or something in it, but I feel like fruit shouldn't be involved in all the sweet stuff.
It sounds a little
Like,
too healthy adding fruit. I think I'd deserve some strawberries on the side.
I'm not trying to be healthy when I'm eating this.
Right.
Especially, I mean, it's something that you maybe once a year, which is why I like to do it at Christmas because it's easy to get up and throw it in the oven, get it ready the night before.
Mhm. And probably pretty
Um,
easy. If you have company, you could probably make a couple pans pretty easily. So stick in 2 9 by 13s and
Very easy. Yeah, definitely. If you
Mhm.
just had maybe some sausage on the side and like you said, a little bit of fruit, perfect. Easy
Mhm.
breakfast.
So you're using
And then keep
French bread, but do you use kind of the stale, more not fresh, baked that day bread?
I suppose you could. I choose either way.
So
I
it doesn't
just get
matter. Okay.
like if I'm at the no, it doesn't matter. It's not like when you're making stuffing or dressing and you want it
Okay.
to be a little dry. No, with this, I've never used a stale bread. I guess I just buy whatever's available at the store and just take my chances. But
Let's move on to this Snickurtle that I cannot wait to hear about.
okay, so the Snickurtle is another, I'm all about really easy and quick because
Hmm.
I'm not into being in the kitchen decorating. Um,
And
so the
not doing
snick
dishes.
oh God, please, not doing dishes. So the Snickerdoodle is so easy, and I don't even remember where I found this recipe, but it was years ago. Snickerdoodle is a graham cracker crust, and it's got cream cheese, sugar, put in your whipped mixture. Then you drizzle more chocolate and caramel across the top and sprinkle that then with pecans.
Oh, so you're turning in the turtle on the top. Okay. Yeah.
Right. The turtle is more on the top because of the pecans, but you freeze it. There's no baking involved. So then you
Okay.
just throw it in the freezer for a couple hours.
So you put it in the freezer. So are you eating this frozen or you're putting it in the freezer to firm it up, but you're serving it chilled? Is it frozen?
Right. It's not frozen. You want to put it in there to firm it up and then take it out. You just want it chilled. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is one bowl and your beaters, your mixer
Mhm.
beaters, and that's it. And you're done. Like it's so easy.
All right. Well, I'm for sure going to make this one and then share this on the blog because I don't know anybody in my family who won't want to partake in this one for sure.
Right? Yeah, it's a good
Hmm.
one.
Good. Well, those are great recipes. Those are some really good comfort food down home. You live out in the East Coast, but these are definitely things that we would all enjoy back here in the Midwest. And I,
Absolutely. One thing I have to say about the Midwest versus living out here, they cannot make macaroni salad in their lives out here. It's horrible. They don't use any mustard. It's like they take the macaroni, they take the elbows and mix it with like mayo and some salt and pepper, and they call it horrible. Oh my God, I just add mustard to it. I mean, and they don't. Nobody out here uses Whip, which I find astounding.
Hmm.
It's always mayo. Nobody
Mayo.
uses Miracle Whip, and it's bizarre to me because mustard and sugar and carrots and
Right.
celery, and it's just awful.
They need to
But
just stick to what they know then, right? We'll
right.
take the pasta salads.
So what I do when we have people over, like in the summer, I pull out my good old Trinity Lutheran church book, my church cookbook from my
Yes.
grandma's church. Oh my gosh. And I get my pasta salad, get my pasta salad recipe right from there. And people are like, this is so good.
Just done the
Midwest
right
is
way.
best. My
I
favorite
love
cookbook.
I love those community cookbooks. I before so Jason and I, like I said, we're down here in Alabama just for a week, kind of celebrating our birthdays. Before we came, I emailed the chamber down in Gulf Shores and said, do you know where I can get a community cookbook? Because if I get one souvenir on this trip, I want it to be a community cookbook from a hospital or a church or,
Oh my God, I love
I
that.
haven't heard back from them, but we've been a few places now where I've been able to pick up a community cookbook that actually has the people's names in it who submitted.
I love
Just
that.
the best. Yeah.
Yeah, those are my favorite. And it's torn and splattered. And I have my recipes that I love earmarked. So I just flip right to them. And I don't know what I'm going to do when I can't use that cookbook anymore.
Is that a
I have,
Trinity?
I
Is
have to
that from
find
South
another one.
Dakota?
It is. It's from Esteline.
It's an Esteline one, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The church
My
cookbooks are
two,
the best.
they are. And what's so weird, in a recipe that sounds good, and then look at the name and it's one of my relatives. But yeah,
Yeah.
my two favorite cookbooks are that church cookbook and the 3M cookbook from Brookings. I use
Which
those all the time.
which color do you have of the
I have the
3M?
blue one.
The blue.
Blue. Yep.
My mom worked there until she retired, and so and then she would give to my sisters and I. So I have all the colors that they did. There's a red, which I think might have been the first one, or maybe that's just the one that I used the most. But the red, there's a green, I think, a yellow, and a blue. I think there's 4,
I
and I
think
have
you're
them
right.
all. I haven't had those out for a long time. I better find those.
So sort of weird. I didn't realize, I guess, your connection of family until
Mm-hmm.
just recently. And your cousin Eugene,
Yep.
he was like my first kiss. Like, I don't even know, like in second grade, because I was so boy crazy.
Oh
He was like
God.
my first little boyfriend.
Eugene. And so he
Yes.
lives in Sioux Falls. And his wife Danielle, she's a huge baker. Danielle makes amazing food, his wife. Well, so does Eugene. They both do. Danielle, she'll listen, I think, to the podcast. So we'll say, hi, Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
And because you guys were
Yeah,
both at Maderi Elementary.
we sure were.
Eugene was at Maderi, yeah.
Yep, we
So
sure were.
his dad, Noriel, is my mom's brother. Their parents. So my grandma Janet, that would be Eugene's grandma Janet. When I always talk about grandma Janet, that's his grandma too. I'll
Right.
share
Okay.
her. Yes.
Oh my God, it's
What a small
hilarious.
world. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was looking, I saw your mom's name. I'm like, wait a second, Linda Moe. And I remember you talking about your cousins and stuff. And I was like, oh my
Yep.
gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a boy crazy fool, Danielle. Got nothing to do with it. Probably. I was probably the initiator on that one. So,
That's a great story. And such a small world. Gotta
yeah,
love the Midwest.
that's right. That's fine. Midwest is best. I keep saying.
Yep. So we'll kind of wrap it up here because I mean it just went so fast and I really really want you to come back many times. We were even talking about what was it that your husband's Italian grandmother, did she make fresh pasta? Is that what we were talking
She
about once?
does. Yes, Jenny Cassaretti. She is his great great grandmother. We were making
Mm-hmm.
homemade ravioli with fresh
Okay.
sausage and spinach and cheese, and we make the dough, and it's a huge process. It's like all hands on deck, but they're so delicious. And we make probably 120 at a time. We want to have them around and don't want to make them all the time.
It's kind of how the
Um,
Midwesterners do our lefse, where we spend
right.
all day and it's all hands on deck. We can wrap it up here, but here I'm reading what I wrote on the back of your grade annual from middle school.
Yeah, I like how you put under your name like Footloose, Thriller, Jump.
Those must have been the popular songs back then. Here's what's funny. I ended it with, let's make some memories at the school. Good and bad ones.
I know. I think that if we had had the chance to be friends even longer, we
Right.
probably would have ended up in jail.
Yes. Which, funny thing, I did end up in jail when I was a sophomore. So
For the next episode.
Thank you, really, for spending time with me this morning and sharing what you love about the Midwest and some of your recipes. And I'll include all of those recipes on randomsweets.com so that people can get those. What's that?
I definitely want to hear about your arrest and your jail time.
Yeah, I ended up having to miss doing a speech in Mrs. Gerberding's class. And so she had to flunk me and I had to retake speech in high school.
God, yeah, definitely. I want to be involved in this.
Jill, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Now, don't get too excited. I was never actually arrested. It's just that no one knew what to do with 16-year-old me. It was really fun working with Jill to create this episode for you, and I'm thankful for social media because that's how she and I reconnected so many years ago. If we're lucky, she'll do more shows for us. Because the audio is a little wonky in this episode, I'll just do a quick recap of the recipes we talked about. Jill gave me her recipes, so I've shared them on randomsweets.com, which I also linked in the show notes. The Thanksgiving leftover galette is simple and straightforward, and it really doesn't need a recipe. You just buy or make 2 pie crusts, roll them out on top of each other on a sheet of parchment paper, and then place it on a sheet pan. Then top that crust with your leftovers, like gravy, turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, and cranberry sauce, leaving about 2 inches around the edges empty, and then fold that 2-inch edge up and over and bake. To make the French toast casserole, you're going to cube 1 loaf of French bread into a 9x13 pan, and then mix together eggs, milk, half and half, vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg, and melted butter, and then you pour that mixture over the bread. And for the topping, you combine butter, brown sugar, walnuts, which are optional, you could probably use pecans, or no nuts, and corn syrup. Drizzle over the bread, and then refrigerate that overnight, and you bake it in the morning and serve it with syrup. I have made the Snickurtle pie, and I can see why Jill's family requests it for their birthdays instead of cake. You start with a homemade or store-bought graham cracker crust. I made an Oreo crust because it's what I had on hand. In a bowl, you're going to use an electric hand mixer to combine cream cheese, peanut butter, and sugar. And then you lightly fold in Cool Whip and pecan pieces. Then you spread caramel ice cream topping on the bottom of the crust, and then you top that with the cream cheese filling. Then sprinkle with more pecans and drizzle with chocolate sauce and more caramel. Now, let's talk about your family's recipe or version of funeral potatoes or cheesy hash browns or hash brown casserole. In the last few episodes, I've been asking you to send me your recipe for an episode that I'm working on for April. I'm anxiously waiting for you to mail it to me on a handwritten 3x5 recipe or index card. And thank you to my sister Callie, whose was the first one in my mailbox. My mailing address is 1614 130th Street, Verdi, Minnesota, 56164. And I've also added that to the show notes so that you can see it there. And if you prefer, you can email the recipe to me at staci@randomsweets.com. That's STACI@randomsweets.com. Thanks for hanging out with Jill and me today. I'd like to hear from you if you try any of these recipes that she shared. I hope you subscribe or follow Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens wherever you get your favorite shows so that you can get an alert when a new episode is available. And be sure to download them to your phone or tablet so you can listen to them on the airplane headed to spring break. Sweet wishes!